So welcome and thank you for joining the One Ohio Recovery Foundation Board of Directors March meeting. Sarah, could you do a roll call for us today?
Director Bond, here. Director Amen, here. Director Whiston. Director Handro.
Here.
Director Old. Here. Director Mason.
Here.
Director Mayor, here. Director Miller. Director Luce. Director St. John.
Here.
Director Wiersbicki. Here. Director Dodge.
Here.
Director Treehouse. Here. Director Hohottle.
Here.
Director Tyler Lee. Here. Director Mattia. Director Piccirilli. Director Johnson. Here. Director Silac. Director Guavar.
Here.
Director Kidd. Director Portman.
Present.
Director Radcliffe.
Here.
Director Royzen.
Here.
Director Smitherman. Director Baker.
Here.
Director Claymire. Director McCauley.
Here.
Director Plummer.
Here.
We have 20.
21, we structured class.
So we're good for a quorum?
Yeah.
Very good. So before we jump ahead to the agenda, I'd like to welcome any guests. I don't think we have any new directors this time around. We announced last meeting. So I am grateful for everybody joining today, both in person and virtually. We have worked on some enhancements to make the sound quality of this meeting better, and I hope you can, when you're joining us virtually, you can hear us. But although we cannot hear your comments and your feedback during the meeting, our screen will have the contact information and we would be happy to hear from you. Again, the email is info@oneohiofoundation.com. So you should have all received your board packet, and the agenda is on our new onboard system, the virtual software. So the first order of business is to affirm the agenda for today. Is there a motion to?
So moved.
Motion by Michael and second by Keith. Any discussion? There's no new items for the agenda. All in favor, say aye. Opposed,
Aye.
and the motion carries. Next, I would like to turn to Tom Gregoire of our Grant Oversight Committee for a report. Oh, I'm sorry, we need approval. Apologize, there's two sides, by the way, of my script. But we do have the approval of the minutes. There were drafts in your packet from our February meeting. Are there any updates to the minutes that you've had a chance to review? Otherwise, can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the prior meeting?
So moved. Second.
Jeanette, and seconded by Julie. Any discussion? Again, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. So the next item we do have is the personal story. As we've done in past meetings, we've started off by taking a few minutes to hear from Director Julie Amen, on this time from Region 15, who will share this month's personal story.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Well, with spring approaching today, it feels like a great day. And as we do at each board meeting, we're going to hear the uplifting story of an Ohioan in recovery who is dedicating herself to improving others' lives. And I'm very honored to be able to share this story with you. Kathy Zeller of Logan County started down the path to addiction in the late 1990s when she was prescribed a narcotic pain reliever for a painful medical condition that resulted in surgery. As a single mom in the midst of a divorce and custody battle, she developed depression and soon began misusing her medication. As her addiction worsened, Kathy became both physically and mentally dependent and sought out more pills. Soon, every spare dollar she made, including her money for rent, was going to her dealer. Kathy ultimately lost her home, forcing her and her children to move into her grandmother's finished basement. Soon, as pills became more and more expensive and harder to find, Kathy began using other drugs. Kathy was eventually arrested and her family staged an intervention. She entered treatment and felt transformed, certain such an episode would never happen again. Several years later, Kathy would relapse. She lost her job of 18 years and found herself estranged from her oldest daughter. Eventually, she emptied 401ks and pensions, using that money to purchase pills, and she still owes the IRS more than $150,000. But Kathy says the most significant loss was felt by her daughters, who did not have their mom there to nurture, support, and guide them. Finally, one of Kathy's daughters informed her she would never see her future grandchildren unless she entered recovery. Kathy tried treatment multiple times, but after several relapses, felt hopeless. Finally, after an arrest forced her off all substances, Kathy had a moment of clarity and desperate prayer. She then relentlessly sought help again, going through 2 levels of detox at the local ER and then at an inpatient treatment center. For 3 months, she went through partial hospitalization and intense outpatient care, attended peer meetings and Bible studies, and she volunteered at Recovery Zone of Logan County, which offers 24/7 peer-to-peer recovery support and many other support services. Kathy has been in recovery since January 2016. After taking a 1-year volunteer assignment as an AmeriCorps volunteer in service to America at Recovery Zone, she was hired as Recovery Zone's director. Today, she is a certified peer recovery supporter, runs peer support services, and is a chemical dependency counseling assistant in the process of becoming licensed. After 7 years of schooling, Kathy will be graduating with a degree in social work this May. Kathy knows recovery is possible and works every day to provide hope and support to those struggling with substance use disorders and their families. She wants people to know that having individuals with lived experience at the table, especially at the local and regional levels, is crucial. We thank Kathy for sharing her story with us, and please join me in recognizing her personal success, as well as her ongoing commitment to support others and to advocate for the end of stigma.
Julie, thank you for sharing that. It's always inspiring to hear the stories at each meeting. It's a good reminder why we're here and that for many people, they have found the light at the end of the tunnel. So now we do have our committee reports, and the first one will be the executive committee report. The executive committee began its monthly meeting series last month with a meeting in February. Each month we'll be meeting to address the urgent needs between the board meetings. We'll continue to meet to tackle items like preparation for the board retreat, which is, we're still working on scheduling. That'll be in the future. And of course, any updates to policies as needed. But now we will turn to the Grant Oversight Committee, and that would be Tom Gregoire for the report.
Don, I think I want to start my report with a couple of thank yous. First to Alicia and Sarah for all their hard work. They arrive at most of our meetings breathless and having just chasing things and getting their work done, and the thorough level of their work is really moving us forward. I don't have to say that again, do I? No. Okay. I want to thank the board too. This is a hardworking board. We're meeting twice a month. We're getting, we're moving things forward. And we met this morning. We had an update, and I think Alicia, you'll tell us a little bit more about that after. Registration's been open. We've heard some preliminary reports on that process. We've been working for our last couple of meetings on finalizing the application. It's got a bow wrapped around it and almost pulled tight. We'll pull it tight later in the week with just a couple of clarifications, and then the application will be ready to launch. So that's the principal work, coming soon. In our future meetings, we'll start meeting about the regional review process and talking our way through that. And as I've said in the past, and I know we're working at this through other committees as well too, this board, I've never been on a board with more potential conflict of interest for everybody. And so we're really thinking it in depth about, not our committee per se, but our organization, about how we'll address that. And Alicia, you may or may want to say more about that, but we'll be having conversations as a board about that as we sort of sort our way through the process. And that is my report.
Chair, if I may, I'll just add to that report a couple more details about where we are as it relates to registration. We're really excited to share some of the data this morning with the grants committee. It feels real. It's happening now. And so we have 117 organizations who have registered into the portal itself and completed the process. We're really excited about that initial number. We are seeing that those organizations serve, we think, 17 of our 19 regions so far. If you all remember, registration is the first step. The application really solidifies who you'll serve. And so this is just us learning about the organizations and what kind of interest we're getting across the state. And we're really excited to see those registrations come through. From what we can tell, they represent a diverse group of organizations, many with budgets less than 500,000. Those from the faith community, our local governments are definitely showing up. Recovery support entities and housing providers are really showing up in a big way in our registration so far. And we're really excited to see those groups, but we have more work to do. We do anticipate and did anticipate that we'd see more every day. And I think since we pulled this data on Tuesday, we have received several more registrations. So it's kind of moving kind of constantly day by day, but we will be asking to reach out with you for your support in getting the word out about this registration process. I know many of you are partnering with us, which I'll talk about here later today, for events and different information sessions. We will have some more to share about those things here in a second. So we're watching those details. We'll make that outreach in partnership with you as needed so that every corner of the state is aware of the important funding. And then we certainly will be working with the 2 regions that are not represented in our registration data thus far to make sure that that number changes. Coupled with that kind of robust showing, I did want to talk a little bit about the communications plan. And so what you see on the screen is just a few pages of the many communications pieces that we put up that are really producing results. And so from a media perspective, we just wanted to share a few stats. For Ohio media, we had 51 stories reaching approximately 2 million viewers. And then globally, and I say that word intentionally, globally, we've reached and we're featured in over 280 media stories, which is a reach of approximately over 780 million viewers. So we're really excited about the engagement from the media to get the word out. They have been trusted partners of ours to really make sure our communities knew this opportunity was available. And that is just related to that initial launch and outreach. I was talking to the grant committee earlier. As we float around the state, we were in Dayton on Monday. We were able to be a part of the listening session, which we'll talk about in a second. But then partnered with WDTN and Dayton TV to do media coverage as well as we kind of are floating around. And then we will be in Region 2 on Friday to partner with Director Driehaus on her big announcements and the work that they'll do, and we'll partner with that media as well. So we're really excited about the media coverage thus far. We also have seen a lot of traffic for our website. And so I think there's still a lot of interest happening. And just to give you a little bit of, I always like data to just share the significance of this. In the first 48 hours after our March 4th launch, we had 8,100 unique visitors. And 92% of those visitors went from our website homepage to this grant headquarters. So we really have landed a significant amount of traffic. On average, this is, we probably see about 100 or so visitors a month this really ramped that up, as you can see in the numbers there. So about 10,000 visitors this week, which is really exciting. We want to make sure we translate those into registrations as appropriate. We're not, we don't want folks to apply that aren't interested or aren't needing the funds, but we want to make sure that we're getting out to those groups that are and have great work to do. So as there is still much work to do about this, we will be preparing a number of things that I'll talk through in my report later today to launch that application. And there's a number of events that we can share with our communities to kind of get them engaged in this process. But I will share those things later. I would first like to introduce Lavelle, who I'll stop sharing my slides here. Oh, actually, I will keep sharing the slides. Hopefully I didn't mess this up. Who will talk about our expert panel and the work that they have been working on over the last several weeks that they've been meeting. So without further ado, I think Lavelle is joining us virtually. Hi, Lavelle.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Director Nelson, foundation staff, and members of the public. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss the experts panel's work. Guided by the Memorandum of Understanding and Foundation Policy, the panel has worked through a process which at the last meeting resulted in the development of application elements that will inform the panel regarding the evidence basis of proposed projects in the application system that Director Nelson just discussed. Every applicant is asked how they would describe the evidence basis of their proposed project. Definitions for each of these will be included in the grant portal for easy reference. And when we get to that slide, I'll discuss what those documents look like. If the applicant selects evidence-based, evidence-informed, practice-based, or promising practice, and as you can see on the left slide there, in descending order, we have those elements. They would be required to upload a document summarizing the research supporting the evidence basis of their proposed project. The document that they would upload would be required to be written in 12-point font, 1-inch margins, and not to exceed 2 pages, with citations also connected but not included in that page limit. If the applicant selects that very last item, innovation, they will upload a document summarizing the evidence, what evidence supports that innovation of that proposed project. And these documents and the document they upload would also be 12-point font, 1-inch margin, but not to exceed a single page. The idea is to require a concise explanation, not create additional work for those applying for the support. The citations, again, with respect to innovation, if selected, would also not be counted against that page limit. If you would move to the next slide. So as I mentioned, the grant portal will include these 2 documents. One provides the rationale for why we're asking for the evidence basis, along with a description of different types of evidence. The other is a compendium of evidence that includes the links to resources for identifying evidence to support grant applications. The idea, again, here is to provide guidance and support to those applying for the funds and allowing us to be in a position to effectively make the assessment regarding the specific project's evidence basis. The listings that we include in this compendium is not exhaustive, but we do expect that listing to grow over time as we go through the various grant cycles. Any questions?
I do have one follow-up question, if I may. I really appreciate this document. We had questions from Region 14 specifically about what counts as evidence-based. And I love the suggestions that will grow as resources over time. This is not it says non-exhaustive, so grant applicants can select other, use other clearinghouses or databases to inform their evidence base or evidence informed work, correct?
Absolutely, and that would be encouraged. You know, as I mentioned, we would expect in that uploaded document, the citations for the evidence. And they can use their own research. So that's totally up to the applicants.
Thank you.
That first slide that was up there that had that on there, I might ask that we include that in the packet also, if that's kind of a really simple starting point.
And again, if everybody could use their microphones or one that's near them so that anybody listening virtually can hear a clear question or answer.
Yeah, could the question be repeated?
I had asked if we could include the first slide that spoke to the evidence-based questions and with the arrows and that on there and into the meeting notes as well.
Thank you. We certainly can do that. And with that, I think if there's no other questions for Lavelle or about the grants process or update in general, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair.
Thank you. So thank you, Tom, Alicia, and Lavelle for the detailed updates. I think it's important to note the emphasis we are making today on the requirements as laid out in the MOU that are also highlighted into the request for proposal. So the One Ohio funds will only be allocated to evidence-based forward-looking strategies that align with the MOU listed abatement strategies. It's the duty as the board and as the fiduciary agent of these critical funds that this work is done. It is my understanding that after today's meeting, the application questions and the expert panel's quick guide to meeting the evidence-based requirements will be made available on our website and in our meeting recap email. I'd also like to thank the Grant Oversight Committee and the expert panel for all the hard work on these important documents. I'm sure they'll be helpful tools to looking to receive grant funds in the coming year and years. So with that, I'd like to now turn to the Personnel Committee, once again to Director Julie Amen to give us an update on the work of the Personnel Committee.
All right. The Personnel Committee met virtually on March 4th. And with Alicia, we discussed reviewing sections of the personnel manual that we will be doing during each of our meetings and hopes to be completed in June. So we're hoping that 3 meetings will break that up and we'll be done. And so things are in alignment there. She did mention that she has ongoing interviews with individuals to help supplement the staff here. And we had an executive session, which afterwards we had a motion and approval of the benefits and compensation plan. So I'm sure she'll be telling you more about that. And our next meeting will be April 4th at 3 p.m., also virtually. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julie, for the update. I'd like to now turn over to the Executive Director for her report, Alicia.
Thank you all, and thanks for the updates there. So although the grant process has occupied much of our time, we have some other key updates that we wanted to share as it relates to just some of the ongoing work of getting into communities and listening. I know in our last conversation, we had talked about us hosting impact academies, which I'll give you an update on those in a moment. And then we talked about listening sessions. We, after the meeting, learned that the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services was too hosting listening sessions across the state, and giving some of our capacity and staff issues, asked and understood that we might be good partners with them to do those and host those listening sessions across the state. So we are really excited that we are taking part in the SOS 4.0 regional engagement sessions, and we did the first of those sessions this past Monday in Dayton. Folks are sitting down. There were over 100 folks in attendance, and really writing on Post-it notes and putting it up on the wall and kind of listing out what they think their community needs when it comes to these issues, and really had a robust conversation about those. Thank you. And what it takes for their region to move forward. So we were excited to be in the room with them, listen, and we will do so for the remaining sessions that will happen throughout this month. So today, unfortunately, we couldn't join them there in Athens. Next week, they will be in Akron, and then Toledo, and then right here in Columbus. So we're excited to be partners on those. That will really start our process of listening. It is just the beginning. We need to hear from our community folks who have been impacted. We need to hear from families. They have been emailing us and really responding and engaging on our social media. But we want to make sure we're going to see them in person and talking some of this through. So we're excited to start those discussions here with the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. And not only from the listening piece, but really just moving into that engagement and that partnership with the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services on solutions as well. And really figuring out where their funds stop and start, and where our funds could add value. And so we're excited to engage in those conversations. We did hear from the department, and they will be joining us at a future meeting here soon to just talk through where their funding is headed, and what opportunities they have available, so that we can really consider those as we start to consider grant applications. So we're really excited for the partnership with the state of Ohio. The next piece is just pointing out our events calendar. You know, kind of coupled with the robust launch, we have talked a lot about our Impact Academy sessions and some of the other things. I just wanted to point out that all of those things are available online. We're really excited to share that we're partnering with OMAS, but also we will post 2 statewide grant application trainings. And so that information will be posted here soon. So our statewide trainings will begin in April, the first week of April or the second week of April, right after our application launches. And those 2 dates are, I believe, up on the website, so you can register now. If you guys wouldn't mind, please share that information on your social media sites. Help us get the word out. We're a new organization and we're gaining a lot in terms of following, but I know that you all have a lot of following as well that could help us get the word out about these important application training events. We also are pleased to share that we have those information sessions posted. So thank you to our partners thus far, and we'll make it to every region eventually, but we're starting with these 4. We have sessions, information sessions planned with Region 2, 7, 1, and 17, and those dates are posted again on that events calendar. We have registration live for all of those events, and registration is trickling in a good rate. The goal of those meetings and the format of those conversations are really the regions introducing themselves to the community, talking about who's on the region board, what they've done to kind of get to maybe some of their funding priorities that are in the application. And then we'll partner with those regions to then share, you know, a little bit about the application process. And these will evolve as we go. Particularly once the application process closes, we'll start talking about the impact that these the grants are having. And so we're excited for these events. So this is just more of an FYI. And if you're in these regions, please join us. Lastly, I wanted to talk about the Impact Academy. So I know, you know, there's a lot of events that we're throwing at you guys. These ones we thought were particularly important to do. So as you can see, we've done 2 of our 3 that we've had scheduled so far. 1 on recovery housing, second on recovery supports, and this last one on prevention. These are critical, we believed, and I'll talk a little bit about how many people are attending. We're really excited. Because it starts to give an outlook of, for example, with the recovery housing presentation, what's available today, what are the different types of recovery housing options? So for those who are considering opening a recovery house, for example, know what it takes to be certified and what it takes to open a house in Ohio. But then it also talks about what other funding sources are available. So folks can start to get a feel for what's the state offering, what other resources are out there, so they can go to those before they think about applying for our funds here at the foundation. So we're really excited about those. To date, for just these 3 events, we're getting the word out. We have over, I think, about 900 people registered for the 3. And 295 of those are for our prevention event here at the end of the month. So we're really proud of those numbers, given the short time frame to kind of get those out in the community. I think our communications team has done a good job, and Sarah, making sure that people know that those are available and letting folks ask questions to try to figure out how to grade these funds together appropriately, how to think about programming in innovative ways, and we'll continue to do these moving forward. We are looking for ideas. So our next series, we think we'll have an evidence-based focused Impact Academy, really partnering with the folks at our expert panel and maybe several others. But if you all have thoughts on what else we could be doing or partners that we could be kind of bringing to the forefront, please let us know. We are watching our data and really are making sure that we put as much information out there as possible quickly so that folks can kind of consume that information. So with that, that is the end of my report on those events. I know that there's a lot going on. So if there's any questions about any of those reports or anything about our operations in general, I would be happy to answer any questions. If there are any.
Okay, Don has.
I do have a question about your request for us to help share information about the grants process. So you mentioned social media. Are there other things that you'd like to see us do? Is it helpful to forward the press release to different stakeholders or other ways we can help get the word out?
Great question. So for us, we have a couple things that you can do. So we do have a toolkit on our site that has a sample newsletter. If you have a newsletter and you're sharing information, please use that sample newsletter article and include it. We'd love to have that posted. We have sample social media graphics and social media posts, as well as those things could be used for website content and link back to us. So those would be kind of the standard pieces. But if you are out in the community, or if you know of an event in your community that you think we could, give you some talking points for or attend if, I know you guys know how small our team is, but attend either virtually or in person if it's a big event. We would love to be invited to those and have that opportunity to share this process. There's a lot of questions circling around it. And I think when we kind of talk it over, I think it always helps folks feel more comfortable to do that. So please let us know of those opportunities. And then if you are approached by the media, I think this is a good point, time and point to kind of highlight this. If you're approached by the media related to One Ohio, we would love to hear from you. And Connie, our esteemed support in that area, can help by giving you talking points and some information that is in real time. So we're capturing real-time data on your regions and what's going on. So anything you need as it relates to that, we can provide that in talking points to you all.
Thank you. Thank you for that question then, Don. So lastly, we have our financial reports, which will be provided by Jim Quinn. He'll run us through the February financials.
Thank you. Yes.
So this morning, we'll talk about a couple things. Last month, we introduced a new budget report and the cash balance report. So I want to run through that. We can put it on the screen. We can run through that one more time so people understand. There were some questions about what some of these categories are. And I especially want to talk about the cash balance so everyone knows what is included in these funds that we have on the report. So the budget report is an obligation report. So money gets reported when we essentially obligate the funds for that activity in the month that it happens. Okay, it's not a cash report, it's a budget report. And so the budget item. Can you go? Oh, okay.
There must be a delay.
Oh, okay. Well, the first category, while they're getting that up, is the budget item. The budget item are categorical expenses approved by the board annually. And they're estimates of what we think may happen during that year. The Audit and Finance Committee can approve up to 10% an increase in any line as long as we can take it from another line. Okay. Any increase above 10% comes to the board, like we did multiple times last year, right? The next column is the obligations for that month, for February. We then have a year-to-date column, which, for example, in this report is February and January, right? Combined, the combined number. Then we have a year-to-date balance, which is that year-to-date, what we spent so far, right? What we've obligated so far. That's the budget that was approved by the board. And then a percent. A percent is a typical like measure, like where are you 2 months into the year? Where should you be? 6 months into the year, where should you be? So as you can see on the report, we're about 92% on the operating. So we've been very conservative with the money that you've entrusted us with. And things haven't really ramped up fully, right? For example, for the months of January and February combined, we saved 50%, right? Because we didn't have staff in place. We didn't have maybe some contracts in place. So that's the explanation for the percent on the operating budget. We can go to the next page, the cash report. The grant budget is exactly the same thing. So as we start obligating grant money, like later this summer, it'll show up on there. So the cash report, I want to go make it a little bigger. Can you see it? So I want to talk about the cash report because there were some questions last month, and we have some new members about what is actually in these allocations. So the approved regional allocation, the first line, the 51 million. That's the amount that will go out as grants this summer, right? When you guys approve that grant. That is distributor and Janssen years 1 and 2, less 3.5 million that you allocated to operating. So it was those first 2 payments we received like last March, just about a year ago, was like 54 million. 3.5 million went to the MOU operating. The balance is allocated for grants. Last summer, it was July, we received distributors in Janssen's year 3. At that time, the decision was made not to allocate those funds, but to invest those funds in a safe and secure place that gets the highest rate of return that we can get, which is what we've done. And we'll talk about that in a minute. The next line is the interest that has accrued on the first 2 lines, right? So that is at some point a decision for you to decide whether you want to allocate those funds or where you want to allocate them. We have not attributed those to the other 2 lines because that would the MOU allocation would always be changing, right? So we've kind of pulled that into a fund. Last March, out of nowhere, kind of a surprise, we got the settlement money for the Mallinckrodt, right? And that was the only payment we thought we were going to get. And then in November, we got another payment. That account is accruing interest, and so the amount you see there is the balance with interest accrued, right? At the time, I think the board voted on that to be kind of set aside for investment. It was kind of a windfall, and so what are we actually going to do with this money? And so we set it aside that way. This money isn't really considered MOU money as far, right, MOU, it's outside of that MOU framework. The next line is the operating funds, which is the 3.5 million that you allocated last year. And that it's covered, the balance covers 22, 23, and 24 expenditures. So when we passed the budget in November, our estimates were that 3.5 million would last us 2.5 years. The bottom line is the McKinsey money. To the right, we have this money in two banks at this point. The board had asked that we keep this money safe and secure and earn the highest interest rate that we could, right? So these are in what these banks call sweep accounts. Money is swept off. And the Huntington is put in treasuries, and then it sweeps back every time we need to spend money, right? It's earning like 5.2%. The Key Bank is real, money is really unique. They're the only ones that offered this list. It's a sweep account, which is all FDIC insured. So that money is swept off every day and deposited in a bunch of banks and then swept back as we need it. And so it's really a good deal, especially since the market has been inverted for almost a year now, right? A little bit more than a year now.
So it's earning.
It's earning 5.15. Yeah,
And it's secured.
it's secured. It's actually, I see it. Yeah,
I'll just say, if you guys all remember, a couple of years ago, there were some issues across the country with some banks not having the funds secured. So we felt it was a priority to make sure the funds were secured.
yes. So are there any questions? All right, is there a vote for approval or?
Is there an item for a vote?
Yeah,
mean,
we
yeah.
can talk. I wanted
You gonna
to
talk-
provide that.
Okay. So again, I want to thank Jim, and we've been connecting, Alicia, Jim and I have been connecting on investments. As you can see, things are changing from an economic standpoint, and we fully expect the Fed to be reducing rates later on in this year, maybe the third or fourth quarter. That said, we have some important work to do from an investment standpoint. Over the next few board meetings, Jim will go in depth about our current financial status and provide updates with what is expected to come in terms of revenue from other settlements. All of this will help with discussions later on in the year, and we need to make decisions on how to invest the funds now and whether or not to see, we want to see the foundation to be in existence beyond the settlement terms. I believe the last settlement term was it 36 or I believe, yeah. So if you have expertise in the area, we would like to broaden the investment committee. So please reach out to either Alicia or me, and we can enhance our investment committee. Again, we're going to have some strategic planning going on with April or May at that point in time, and that will help set the tempo for how long our investments will go out. Are there any other questions at that point? So, but we do need a motion to approve the February 2024 unaudited financial report. Go ahead, Senator McCauley.
Thank you, Chairman. So do you anticipate, you mentioned April, May being more of a conversation about what we do with these investment funds. Do you anticipate more of a robust conversation about the long-term picture of what we're doing with these funds, whether we're going to endow them long-term or whether we're going to say, hey, we're just not going to touch these for a shorter term. Is that what you had in mind?
Yeah, yes. So when we do our strategic planning, whenever that takes place, we really hope that's where we identify the time period, because anytime you walk in with a financial planner, one of the first questions they have is, you know, when you're going to need it and how much. And we can't, at this point, answer that question because the board has not sat down and come up with a strategic plan. Again, will we last to 2036 or do we want to go beyond? Because that identifies really how we invest those funds for the short term to 5 years or the longer term 5 to 10 years.
Thank you.
Great question. Thank you, Senator.
Let me ask a question along those lines then.
Please, Director Denise.
Having a hard time with my mic. So also, I am wondering, as we think about investment, we also think about the distribution formula related to how much money we will have available for investment, as opposed to the distribution down to the regions, the overhead costs that we're incurring, all the other things that we've talked about in previous meetings. And at some point, we're going to have, and Alicia and I talked a little bit about this meeting related to the distribution. So we have a common understanding of how we're moving forward related to all of that. We've done it with the first 2 tranches, but we really haven't done it for the ones that have come in since then.
That's all entirely accurate. And I believe the proper time to establish those investment timeframes is after this board determines really the longevity of the organization and the use of funds. Are we in agreement then on that,
Yeah, no,
Denise?
they absolutely go hand in hand. Because if you're going to talk about investments, the question will become how much are we investing and for how long, right? So yeah, they go absolutely.
Thank you. Are there any more questions at this time? Then I would like to have a motion to approve the February 2024 as made by Robert. And who was the second? I'm sorry, Tom Gregoire. Again, the motion is to approve the February 2024 unaudited financial report. Is there any discussion? It'll be a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion carries. So again, a reminder about the next meeting. Our board meeting will be on April 10th. We all so appreciate everybody's efforts to ensure that we have a quorum, and we'll continue to look at venues for future meetings. So with that, since I don't have a gavel, I'll just call it adjourned.